Okay, I can see some people jumping in now. That is awesome. Cool. Hi everyone. If you want to just as you join, just chuck in the chat who you are, if you're in a startup, what your startup is, what city you're currently in. We'd love to just get an idea of who's in the room as such. So please do just chuck in the chat. Yeah, what's your startup and what city you're currently based in. We're hoping this will be quite an interactive webinar. So do honestly, as we go, just chuck in your questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we've got Dan and Shane to interact and answer anything AWS related as well. So welcome everyone to our webinar with Daniel O'Brien and Shane Tracey-O'Connell from AWS New Zealand. So these guys are your go-tos for learning and applying for AWS Activate, which is a really cool program for startups. And as an organizational partner, Territory 3, we can offer you the organizational code to apply for the initial 10K credits with this is credits, the business support, the tech support, which is really awesome. So a lot of our members do apply for that. So afterwards, feel free to chuck me an email if you are keen to apply for that, and I'll just flick you the information and the links and everything to register. But yeah, welcome to Dan and Shane, and thank you guys for coming on board and having a little a Q&A session with our founders today. So I'd love to pass on to you guys to just give us a bit of background on yourselves and then a bit about AWS Activate.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Lilia, for having us on board today. It's really good to be able to speak to the community. I'll quickly talk about myself, then hand over to Shane. So, our mission on the startup team is really to help Kiwi startups shine on the world stage. And we see ourselves at AWS kind of like a bridge to the world by AWS. Bridge to ideas, to people, customers, capital, and markets, but also to our Activate program, of course, which we've just talked about. A bit about my background. I've worn the hats of an entrepreneur, a software and data engineer in the past, and a solution sales leader. And I've worked over in Europe, London, Paris, and also New Zealand. I've been with AWS now 4 years. I actually joined as a solution architect for the first year, then moved across into this role as a VC, what's called venture capital business development. I work with investors and venture-backed startups in New Zealand, helping them make the most of AWS. So yeah, my background's both tech and also worked as an investment manager at a VC firm in London, and I bring those two things to the bow. So with that, I'll hand over to Shane for a quick intro.
Dan, tēnā koutou katoa, ko moiho nā maunga, ko waiho te awa, ko tainui te waka, ko Ngāti Maru hauraki te iwi, ko Shane Tracey-O'Connell tōku ingoa, ko tahu mahi ki Amazon Startup Business Development. Huri noa, tēnā koutou katoa. Hey everyone, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for inviting us along, Lilia. As I mentioned, my name's Shane. I'm based in Napier, but I work with startups all over New Zealand and some in Australia as well through my role. Now, I'm kind of the counterpart to Dan. So Dan looks after kind of the sort of later stage, kind of VC-backed startups and our partners in that space. I look at the pre-venture capital space. So everything kind of seed forward. So I spend a lot of time working with universities, really early stage founders, the next wave of entrepreneurs that are coming through, and our community partners and co-working spaces, that kind of thing. Now, my background, I studied computer science at Auckland University. Since then, I had a go at starting 3 companies, of which 2 I folded, 1 I sold to another business. And so now I'm just really passionate about helping startups in New Zealand kind of, yeah, like Dan said, get to that world stage or get to that next milestone that they're working on. And I've got a passion for working with Maori and Indigenous entrepreneurship, gaming startups, and anyone doing something cool, really. So that's kind of a bit about me.
Sorry, I just had to unmute myself there. Awesome. No, thanks so much for the intros, guys. And now it'd be great to jump into yeah, just a bit of like an overview of what actually is AWS Activate for people who haven't heard of it before. So if you can give us a little bit of a pitch on
yeah.
what that is.
I'll first maybe step back a bit and just talk about AWS, of course, and Amazon Web Services. We're all about cloud computing. That's access to tech resources over the internet using pay-as-you-go pricing on demand. This means, you don't have to pay up front. You can pay as you go. All sorts of services, over 200 fully featured services covering compute, storage, database, machine learning. It's a bit like, your light switch at home. You only pay for the electricity when it's being used. I always like just to start with that little blurb because, just to level set about what AWS actually does. And just to mention also, we've been in New Zealand more than 8 years now and work with tens of thousands of customers here from big customers, like the Xeros, the Bank of New Zealand, Vodafone New Zealand, to startups across the country, hundreds of startups across the countries from, the Rayguns, the Farago AI, Porsche, many, many startups. So just with that, AWS Activate is our sort of prime Activate program for startups to activate on the platform. So you can experiment with free resources on AWS. This means you have credits. That's probably the main thing people look at, and you can access from $1,000 to $100,000, depending on where you are in that sort of early to late stage and who you're backed by. And via Kiwi landing pad, of course, and Territory 3 rather, we have set up a $10,000 US dollars worth of credits that you can use on AWS. Now, what do these credits do? These allow you to offset charges on the platform. So, those 200 services I talked about earlier, machine learning, analytics, storage, all sorts of services, you can actually experiment with them for free for a limited time using the credits. And this means your engineering teams can focus on the core engineering, the value that you want to provide for your customers, and experiment and iterate. We know that startups are all about experimentation and not focus on things like managing infrastructure in the cloud and the like. So that's what Activate's about. It's the credits piece. Above and beyond the credits, you also get an elevated level of support through either business support or developer support, which means access to AWS cloud support engineers 24/7 via chat, email, and phone for not only support guidance, but also contextual guidance on, okay, I want to get started with machine learning. What's some good resources to get started? So that's another thing you get. And then you get also perks and benefits with partner providers, things like HubSpot, or I think Stripe might be there on the list. You can see on this, there's a part of the console called the Activate console, and there's a bunch of free resources there and benefits and perks you can access through that. Actually, we notice many startups don't realize the full scope of the benefits provided by the Activate program. So yeah, I can talk about parts in more detail as you see fit, Lydia.
Cool. Anything to add there, Shane?
I think Dad summed it up really well. Like what I'm keen to sort of do today is just have like an open chat and answer any questions that sort of come through about the program and just generally like how we can help in New Zealand.
Cool. I did see one question already early on, was someone asking, is the program replicated overseas? And I think that's a yes, correct?
That is correct. It's a global program. And so it's available in other countries as well. We run the program through the startup ecosystem, through the Territory 3s of the world or the venture capital firms of the world. And in fact, through June 2020, globally, there was $1 billion US worth of credits allocated to startups across the world through this program. It's really one of our key programs. Startups are really close to AWS's heart. It's in our DNA from the very early stages when cloud computing was pioneered. When we pioneered back in the 2006, 7, 8 era, startups were the early adopters and the builders. So it's one of our first customer segments, really important for us, and still is and remains so. So yeah, it's all over the world.
Awesome. Cool. Well, that is kind of a call to action to our audience now. Feel free to just start chucking in some questions, some thoughts. We'd love to hear, why you joined this webinar. What was there that you were looking to learn about AWS Activate, or was it to connect with Dan and Shane? But yeah, we'd love to interact with everyone here and kind of see what kind of questions you're keen to find out more about. In the meantime, I've just chucked in AWS Activate link as well. So there's the website there where it does have all the information, obviously, which you can read afterwards as well. We've got a question here from Julian. What do you class as a startup? So I guess that's sort of like what's the criteria to apply?
Do you want? Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'll answer my view on it, and then Dan, if I miss anything, you go. You know, we think of a startup as, you know, anyone looking to build a business, and that's formed within the last kind of 10 years. This is like like our US definition, and it kind of needs to be adapted slightly to the New Zealand market. But we look at, you know, has the company been founded in the last 10 years? Have they raised like up to Series A? So I think after Series A, Activate, startups aren't eligible for. So it's more for the pre-Series A stage. And I think that's pretty much it, right, Dan? Those are the two criteria.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're not too strict on it. I mean, the thing is, I guess, when it does have, as Shane mentions, a sort of US view of the word startup, and in the US, startup means a high growth, a typically tech business, right? So you know, there's the growth element, you know, and startup has an illusion with high growth, and so for us, you know, I guess, you know, that in New Zealand, that often means global growth, right? Because in the country, we can't actually, we've got a small country here. So there's a growth piece to it, but actually it's not a hard and fast definition. I think I see there the age, size. So age, you know, within the last 10 years, and then size, as Shane mentions, really the limit there is Series A venture capital and earlier. So Series A venture capital for those familiar with the Series A, that's sort of like a raising up to 15 to 20 million New Zealand dollars in venture funding. So typically from high risk investment, you know, the Movax, the Blackbirds, the Airtrees, the Accel Ventures, those sort of VC venture capital firms, or angel investors or seed investors. Yeah.
Awesome. There was a question comment here from Robert mentioning that maybe it is worth the CEOs and non-technical founders engaging with you guys, which is true. I have noticed also even through T3, we often do have you know, the CTO of the company coming through looking to apply for the credits, but it is often quite founder focused. So it is great as a founder for you to get involved and connect with AWS when applying for Activate.
Totally. Yeah, I'll just comment on that as well. That what Robert put in there. Thanks for that. That I think there's a common misconception where people see the AWS brand and they think technical, like and that makes sense given it is a a cloud computing platform. But the team that Dan and I are on is obviously the startup business development team, which is a global team, and it's made up of founders, ex like venture capital investors, angel investors, CTOs of startups. You know, it's this group of people that have been there, done that, and just want to kind of give back to the ecosystem and support at scale startups. So, you know, when you lean into our team, there's a lot of experience and there's a lot of connections globally that can help kind of on a non-technical standpoint as well. But we do also have a solution architecture team to go deep dive into the technical side of things. But we're here to support.
Yeah. So just adding on to that, like I've been looking at ag tech companies in New Zealand in the last 2 years, and we've been working with a number of ag techs beyond infrastructure and things like at the National Field Days. We work closely with Cropsy, which do computer vision and viticulture, and help them getting them on stage at a one-to-many event there, and also on Field Days TV. Or we've worked with Halter, that you might be familiar with. They raised a Series B earlier this year. They're born in the cloud on AWS. They accessed the AWS Activate program in the first 2 years as they were prototyping and experimenting. So they used those credits. And then again, we've worked with them in ag tech. So they've been featured on our blog, a global AWS blog, startup blog. Halter are there around how they're using IoT on AWS and compute and analytics. And they've also been at Field Days. We've connected them to the global team. So we do, it's a great point that in fact, you know, it's beyond just infrastructure. We see ourselves as part of the ecosystem and actually as a bridge to the global startup community through us, because we're extremely well connected with our counterparts in other parts of the world. It's only a Slack message away. If you tailor what you're asking for well, we can probably execute it really quickly, and sort of try and connect. We're all about supporting Kiwi founders. We want to see Kiwi founders succeed.
Cool. Awesome. Question here, what kind of support could be expected for machine learning, and how is it different from Google machine learning and others?
Happy to take first stab at that. Yeah. So for machine learning, the thing is, like, going back to that question on ag tech, actually one of the the point I was making in ag tech, I've been looking closely at that. Machine learning is really applicable in ag tech, and it's applicable across the board, but I've particularly been looking at it, and we have got specialists, like in New Zealand, we've got Stefan Merton, who's a startup solution architect, who's been going deep with customers, like some that I've just mentioned, and saying, okay, you want to build your computer vision model to detect things like disease in vineyards, or the yield of an expected vine. This is how you can do this on AWS. So we have specialists with expertise on how to do this, to build and train the model in the cloud. But what's happening nowadays, and the trend is actually you deploy the model on the edge devices. So in their case, on the actual devices on the edge, to actually say, yes, this plant is diseased or not. Now that whole sort of machine learning operations and pipeline of data flow, we can advise you. We've got specialists here and around the world who can advise you, and they're available for free, to provide that solution architecture advice. So we have that. We've got partnerships with the likes of NVIDIA at a global level, for instance, to unlock things like credits to do the experimentation. Halter and Hectare and Cropsy have all used these facilities to experiment with credits. Yeah, we've got so many stories of customers experimenting and deploying globally solutions with machine learning on AWS. AWS is, our bread and butter is scale, and scaled ML is part of that. So yeah, if there are particular use cases, Sumit, that you want to talk about, just hit us up and we can connect you in.
Cool, awesome. And just looking through the website, just looking some clarification on, there's a section for AWS founders, and would that being separate to the 10K credits, correct? So would that be applicable for, say, if there's a founder who isn't his very quite early stage, would that be what you would recommend? The it says $1,000 AWS credits.
Yeah. So the kind of thinking behind that, having the two different tiers, is, there are obviously different stages of startup, and the founders tier is very much for, I guess, like non-funded startups that are just getting started. It basically lowers the barrier to entry, so anyone can apply for it as long as they have a website that can verify they own a domain, which is kind of like the lowest barrier to entry. And they get $1,000 and some developer support credits on the platform. And that's just to get started. And often we've seen customers in the past, where they've made a mistake and they've accidentally taken $100,000 up front, and it expires after a year. And I don't know like about anyone else, but when I had a startup, trying to spend that much on AWS is extremely difficult, like unless you're being an idiot about it. But the recommendation is to take the credits that match the kind of stage of startup you're at, to extend the length of the runway that we can support. And so the founders tier is very much that first step. So if you're yeah.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, and so that's similar. We even like through our rule code, that's for applying for the 10K credit. And then once you go through that 10K, then you'll come back to us and say, hey, we're ready for more credits. And then we can help you apply for the next tier up and the next tier up, and kind of just match the speed that your startup is growing at. So it's a tiered system like that.
Yeah.
Guys
on the call, Dan. Thanks for that, Guy.
Thanks, Guy. That's wicked.
Oh, that's awesome. Question, can you divert business support credits to compute?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Dan.
So I was just going to highlight that on the business support. So one thing that we do notice is that people aren't realize how this is such a great service. Business support means you have an AWS cloud support engineer, a person who is actually going to be available 24/7 by phone, chat, and email, not just for support, like problems, but actually, we've got 200 plus services there. Nobody can be an expert in everything. If you want to get started and actually get going, they're going to be really responsive to helping your engineering team skill up and get started with these services. So I often describe it as like a turbocharge for your engineering team. We just see it underutilized in New Zealand. And so and also again, it expires. We can't, unfortunately, it's very difficult for us to ask for extensions, for credits and things like that. So make use of it.
I think you might be on mute, Lilia.
Sure, sorry. Just answering the question about the recording. So we will be uploading this recording for you to watch later on today. If someone had to just jump out now, or if someone is interested in learning more about Activate, then that will be up later on today. Question here from Richard. Is there a venture fund within Amazon for Kiwi startups pre or post Series A, similar to Amazon VC in India? Are you aware of?
Yeah, look, I can talk about Stretch. So I'm not that familiar with the India funding environment, but we do have funds that invest globally. There's one called the Amazon Alexa Fund, which is a $200 million off balance sheet fund. And so the Alexa devices, the voice devices that we have at home and the like, what they're all about is effectively driving the adoption of voice. And so if you have a voice related startup, and now we've talked, for instance, in New Zealand with Tanya.ai, Donna Marie Ryder is the founder of Tanya.ai, and she's got a voice startup to help small and medium-sized businesses with financial literacy. So basically you've got zero, maybe you're a small business, but you want to know what the situation is with your accounts receivable. You talk to Alexa in the morning as you have your coffee, and it's going to give you that advice. And so she's been put in touch with that fund. I know she's talking to them at the moment. But and she's used Activate as well to experiment. So this fund is a global fund. Then there's also the Amazon Climate Pledge Fund. So that's a $2 billion fund, which was launched last year, a part of the Amazon Climate Pledge, which is all about helping Amazon become net zero in terms of carbon emissions by 2040, which is 10 years before the Paris Agreement. And so if you've got a technology or a startup that might help us in that mission, then definitely we can help with. I was just speaking to the Climate Pledge Fund, one of their principals yesterday, about a particular accelerator in this country, and so we've got access, again, that connection piece. We can help with that, of course, with a warm introduction where it makes sense. When it comes to introductions, by the way we operate is a sort of what's called a double opt-in. We ask the founder if they want to be introduced, and then we ask the investor. Same for the VC funds if they want to be introduced, and then we make the introduction. That's kind of how we do it.
Cool, awesome. That's actually a really cool initiative that Amazon's got going there. So that's cool. So is that sort of like a bit of an open invite to say if someone is in a startup that's working towards climate friendly, environment friendly things that maybe they should
have a look at the Climate Pledge Fund webpage, and you'll see sort of the view of the sort of startups. Like I mentioned, it does have to sort of tie into us being like helping Amazon meet its net zero carbon footprint by 2040. We're quite a big business across not just AWS but Amazon as well, and all operations. So it could be like in logistics, if you have something around there's a lot of deliveries of Amazon parcels around the world. If you could do something to help with that, reducing the footprint. I'm just, so it does have to be qualified a little bit, but have a little look there. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for putting the link in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, so everyone do have a look at that if that's in your realm of what your startup is working at. Question here, my startup is about to finish the 1K AWS Activate credits. Can we get more? We're still non-funded and looking towards getting funded by accelerators like StartMate and Y Combinator. Quick answer is that yes.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like yeah, let's have a chat about it, but to see what the right next step is.
Cool.
Cool.
Would you
sorry.
Would you recommend they simply go through the application process on the website or contact you directly?
Yeah, I mean, just reach out to me directly. I'd be keen to learn more about your startup. We also missed a question that Richard Chu had around do we provide any support for blockchain and crypto startups in New Zealand?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Short answer is yes. We're going to have quite a large focus next year on, in the NFT and kind of blockchain space from a startup point of view in New Zealand, because we're seeing some signals that show that, is an area that requires support. So we've been working with some of our international colleagues around some of the work they've done in this space. And so we're going to be bringing that to bear. So yeah, short answer is yes on that.
Yeah. And I was just going to add on to that. We have got a startup in New Zealand called VV Akomi, which is signed. You might be across their NFTs. They've signed with Marvel, Disney, and the like, really blowing up, going gangbusters. And we've got, we've been working with them for several years. David, you and the team are doing a fantastic job. So we're pretty close to, and there's non-fungible labs, of course, up in Auckland as well. And so we're pretty close to the scene here in New Zealand. And yeah, we've got experts, as Shane mentioned, in other parts of the world that we can leverage when it comes to minting NFTs or the elasticity. When these NFTs drop, of course, you need massive elasticity because you get a huge spike in demand, maybe over the course of an hour or so. And that's, again, something that we've got specialty expertise to help.
Like that Disney NFT they did last week or this week. Did you see that? The first Disney NFT that VV launched.
Disney Plus. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Cool. If anyone has any more questions, now is the time to chuck them in. Otherwise, we would just wrap up a little earlier than 11 o'clock. So please do chuck in the chat right now. If you have any burning questions, now is the time to have a chat with Shane and Dan. Awesome. Here's one. We're a bootstrap startup with some traction, considering launching on the Amazon Marketplace, and are looking for recommendations and suggestions. Are there local contacts we can reach out to at Amazon?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. We've got partner management team in New Zealand as well. Like there's over 100 people at AWS in New Zealand. So we've got a broad team that ranges from account management, sales, partner management, solution architecture. We've got some software engineers now. There's definitely people on that front, so we can help you connect you into the right team there. That's one way to probably think of us as well, is like we can be your conduit into the wider business and connect you with the right people. If you're not in the startup space, which most people on this call are. But
yeah. And the AWS Marketplace is a great example of a channel to market, right? I mean, there's over 310,000. I was just looking at the stats. 310,000 global monthly users in the AWS Marketplace and AWS Data Exchange, and so this is a channel to help you go to market. And we have specialists in New Zealand, like Daryl Grauman, for instance, is a good person in the New Zealand team to talk about what New Zealand companies are doing with AWS Marketplace, and he can talk you through that. So yeah, as Shane mentions, get in touch.
Are you across the planned NZ data center?
Well, yeah, we're aware of it. Have you got any comments on that, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're aware of it. You might have seen, the newspaper. We don't have any further sort of comments from what's been said in the newspapers and the press. We're just super excited that it's happening. It shows just our long-term commitment to this country as an innovation center, yeah, I think it's a demonstration that we're here for the long haul, and we believe in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So exciting stuff happening there. But no.
Yeah, and I think that there's one thing to just sort of point out there, which was covered in the media, but it's not just one data center; it's a full region being launched. So it's it's definitely worth keeping an eye on and reading up about. It's putting New Zealand on the map truly from a digital point of view, not just one data
And
center.
so when we say region, that means there's sort of redundancy built into it. So like if you've got you're storing stuff in AWS, like on Amazon S3, which is our object storage services, it will be replicated across multiple data centers, so that if there's a failure, there's fault redundancy, it's durable, right? And these data centers are physically separated by a number of kilometers, and they're on different floodplains and the like, so that a region is not just a data center, it's a high availability, highly durable sort of, it's not a data center, it's more than one data center, as Shane mentioned. Availability zones is what we call them.
That's the word I was like trying to think of it.
Cool, awesome. If I've missed any questions, just flick another message in there if I've missed yours. I think I've seen them all so far though. Cool. Okay. I mean,
actually, did we catch Guy Horrocks' question there around similar to the VC side? We did cover that, didn't we? Do you guys make intros to the corp dev team too at AWS?
Is that the question around corp dev?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Guy, same policy. It's a double opt-in, but we do. Yeah, and actually, I was involved with one in the last 2 weeks. So yeah, we do.
Cool. Awesome. Well, if no one else has any more burning questions, you can also get in touch with Dan and Shane via email, and I've chucked their emails in the chat there. You might want to quickly take a photo or a screenshot, because when we end the webinar, the chat disappears. So do make a note of those right now. But otherwise, there's also the AWS Amazon link that I've chucked in there, so you can have a read up about AWS Activate.
I'll just say one thing. There's also Sarah Locke I see on the channel here as well. So we should introduce Sarah as well as part of the AWS startup team here in New Zealand. Sarah, do you want to put your email maybe on the chat too?
Wonderful. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, and definitely. So Sarah works one-on-one with a lot of the startups to help specifically around sort of the build and the solutions that we can provide, and brings in the solution architects as well. So yeah, there, I see her email there. Cool.
Perfect. Okay, well, no more questions have come through, so I guess we'll wrap up. So a big thanks to Dan and Shane for jumping on board this live webinar with our community and helping everyone learn a bit more about AWS Activate. Hopefully you have learned a bit, and hopefully we've answered your questions as well. But yeah, do get in touch afterwards if there's more you want to learn, and do flick me an email or LinkedIn message as well if you're keen to apply for the 10K credits, and I can send you organization code, which is what you need to apply. You'll see as you go through the website process there. So do just get in contact with me as well afterwards if you're interested. But yeah, otherwise, big thanks to Dan and Shane, and hopefully catch everyone on the next webinar. Any last minute thoughts from you guys?
Oh, just thanks for having us. It's great to see a few familiar names in the chat as well, and some names I don't recognize. So I'm looking forward to connecting with those of you that I don't know further.
Yeah, just again echoing that. Thanks a lot, and just thinking it's the greatest time ever now to be a founder of a startup, or to be in a startup in New Zealand. And we're on a mission to 10x the number of startups in New Zealand. Support that.
Actually, I do have one little final plug. I've launched a competition with Blackbird called Wild Futures, and we're looking to find some of the key kind of student talent and startup entrepreneur talent across Australia and New Zealand. So I've just dropped the link in the chat. If you know any students, or you have kids or friends, family, feel free to just share it with them. There's a cash prize up for grabs as well.
Cool, awesome. No, that's great. I'll have a look at that as well. Cool, awesome. Thanks so much, guys. I guess we'll wrap up now. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. And great. This recording will be up in a couple of hours or so you can send it around, and we'll post it on LinkedIn and up on our website, territory3.community/academy. But otherwise, hope everyone has a great day wherever you are in the country, and catch you next time.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.